To India and Ireland, round Africa and back again. We don't really need to know just where we'll go. Maybe Canada, then to Brazil, then through the Alpine foothills. All I really want to know is, can we go? Oh baby, can we go? Round and around the globe.
Welcome to Take Me With You, episode 40. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Cheryl. We are two well-traveled people who want to go everywhere.
But that's not going to happen. So instead, we'll travel vicariously by inviting a guest to share their unique travel stories with us.
Today, Ryan is going to talk about his trip to Ireland.
Yay!
Oh my gosh.
I've only
I'm
been
so
talking
excited.
about this trip on the podcast for what? Half of the life of the podcast?
Yes, yeah. Our listeners are like, we get it. But it's, so I know, other than what you've shared on the podcast about your preparation and everything, and seeing glimpses of photos on social media and trying to not pay very much attention, I don't know about this trip. And it sounds like you didn't have a lot of finalized plans until a little closer to the trip, or maybe even just didn't have a lot of finalized plans on the trip compared to your usual style.
I think it depends on what you mean by finalized plans. As we've talked to other guests, when we ask about their travel style and whether or not they're planners and things like that, we tend to kind of see a lot of people around some sort of preparation, but not all the preparation. I think that's the one we've seen most often. And I think that's where we ended up landing on this trip. So we had a spreadsheet that had all the different sites and things that we were interested in all the different cities. We had all of our lodging planned ahead of time, so we knew where we were going to be which night. But as far as exactly the order of seeing the attractions, that we hadn't had figured out to the T quite yet.
Okay, so without getting into the details of the trip yet, how did you feel about that? Like, how did that go for you?
It's interesting. Yeah, so there were three of us. It was me and my friends Tom and Serena, who have both been guests on this podcast before. I think it was episodes 4 and 5, I think.
Yeah.
And so there's three people now trying to coordinate where do you go, when, and all of that. And I think the more people you have, the more complicated it is.
Uh-huh.
And I've only ever done one other trip as like this, of a European vacation thing that has been completely planned and I didn't do with a group of some kind, because most of the traveling I do is with students. So it was interesting for me to mentally compare that trip to this trip. And I would say I had similar amounts of planning ahead of time in this trip to that trip.
Okay.
However, I did get to the place with this trip where I wished that at least I had done a little bit more preparation and research ahead of time. And I just didn't have the time with the end of the school year and then going to Slovenia first. There just wasn't the time really to do it. And it wasn't bad, but we would often sit down in the evening after having done all the stuff during the day to decide what we were going to do the next day. And there were several times where I was just like, I just want to go to bed. I don't really want to have to plan for tomorrow. The flip side of that is a lot of the stuff I don't know that we could have had super planned ahead of time, since we hadn't actually been there to see how it all played out. So driving, and I'm going to talk quite a bit about driving, but the driving, sometimes things took way longer than we thought, and sometimes they took way less time than we thought to drive places.
Interesting.
And so like there was one towards the end of the trip, we were in Northern Ireland, and we drove from Portrush down to Belfast. And we ended up in Belfast earlier than I think we had originally planned. So we had time. So we went ahead, and we weren't thinking we were probably going to go to the Titanic experience until the following day, but we went ahead and did it that afternoon because we had the time. We were there. So it's like, hey, we have the energy. We're not super tired. Let's go do this. You know,
Cool.
I wouldn't want to be planned so much that we couldn't flex and do those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you could see the reason that people enjoy their flexibility.
Yeah.
And then also, I think you are similar to me, where sometimes decision making takes the fun or the relaxation out of the vacation.
Yeah.
And it's like, I would rather do the decision making in advance because then I can just live it.
Yep. Exactly.
And then I've talked to other people who, if it's all decided for them and they don't get to choose what they want to do in the day, then that's not relaxing and that's not fun vacation. So it's the flip. So, but
Yeah.
that's really interesting that, and I mean, it's true, like travel time, whether it's a car or like
Public
catching a train or
transportation,
whatever
yeah.
you're doing, like travel time can vary. And so
Yep.
when there's like super short turnarounds between things, or like you think something's going to take a lot of time, like it's just, those things kind of need to be a little loose. And so that's interesting. So I want to start by asking you 2 questions.
Okay.
My first question, you're not right. We're talking about this wonderful trip you took, and you don't sound excited at all.
It's because I know which questions you're going to ask me.
My first question is, what was the highlight?
That's so hard because there were so many great things about the trip. I think 2 things come to mind initially. I loved the time that we spent in Kinsale, which is a town that's on the south coast on the eastern-ish side of Ireland. And I don't know exactly why. We had really good weather while we were there, so that might have been part of it. But I really just enjoyed the vibe and the feel. It was on the waterfront, and we got to see super low tide and the tide come in and watching. It was just, I don't know. I just really enjoyed the vibe of that city. Yeah.
That's very cool. And then what was the low?
So the low and we've talked about this, Serena, Tom, and I talked about this. I don't know if this would necessarily be the low for all 3 of us, but it was definitely, it's on our top low list, I guess. Actually, we were all pretty disappointed with the Dingle Peninsula.
Really?
Yeah.
Didn't we talk about that on this podcast?
I think so.
Interesting.
Yeah. And
So
I
you're
can talk
kinda
about
looking
more about
forward
it when
to
we
it.
get there. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, it doesn't mean it was bad, because the whole trip was great and wonderful. We didn't have necessarily a bad day on the trip, really. It's just, it did not live up to our expectations. So it was a letdown. It was a disappointment.
Was it because of the hype?
I think it was somewhat. I think that played into it.
Interesting. So it was kind of a Mona Lisa experience for you.
Kind of a
then.
Mona Lisa experience, kind of an Iron Man experience for me. Everybody loves the first Iron Man movie. I'm not impressed with it. It's not bad. I don't hate it. But I didn't see it until after it was super popular. And then I went and I was like, this was not that amazing of a movie. I mean, yeah, it was entertaining, but
Yeah. Isn't it funny how expectations can really change our perception of things like that?
yeah, they have a huge difference. So
Yeah. Okay. So, well, thank you for answering those questions. Hopefully the
You're
rest of
welcome.
this will be less difficult for you than that was.
we'll see.
Okay. So let's get into it. I want to hear
Yeah.
all about it.
Okay. So first of all, I was thinking about this on the trip. I think the way that I want to talk about this was an Irish road trip.
Aww.
So this is a road trip vacation. And I framed it that way while we were there, and I think it helped me enjoy the trip more, because it wasn't necessarily just about the cities that we were going to. It was about the driving in between and the places that we stopped along the way. And so thinking about it that way, obviously we rented a car. So thinking about it as a road trip, I think made it much more enjoyable for me. And that's how I think I'm going to talk about this trip, is more of a road trip and talking about what that road trip experience is or was like.
Have you ever done a road trip in another country?
That's a good question. Not really. Not like this, like multi-day road trip. I haven't done in another country. I've done
Day
longer, like day trips. I've rented cars internationally before.
Okay.
But yeah, it was mostly like a day or like a day and a night sort of a thing. But as far as like a real road trip, not really, not like this.
Cool. So that's a new experience for you, being in Europe but doing a road trip.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Nice.
So the first thing I think I want to talk about is, since it was a road trip, I would like to give some tips on driving in Ireland.
Let's hear it.
So first of all, they drive on the left side of the road, and the steering wheel is on the right side of the car. So it's like being in England.
Yes. Okay.
Right? And so that in and of itself takes some getting used to.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And
That probably feels pretty freaky. You're like, I don't know. I could see some freak out moments of just like, with the car's coming. It's like,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. And it wasn't, yes. Well, and the freaky parts, the things that were freaky are something else that I'll get to in a minute. But really is like the lane size.
Is it more narrow?
Oh, yes.
Really?
Oh, yes. Very much. Okay. So me and Tom and Serena, compiled a list of driving tips for driving in Ireland.
Okay.
So I think I'm just going to start with this, and then some of these will come into play as I describe some things. So the first thing that I have on the list is the speed limits, by and large, are too fast.
Okay.
So they're all in kilometers.
All right.
Well, in the Republic of Ireland. So the island of Ireland technically has two governmental units. Countries, but it's a little more complicated. So the Republic of Ireland, which is the bulk of the island on the south side, and that is its own country. It's part of the EU, but it's its own country. And then Northern Ireland, which is obviously in the northern part of the island, is part of the United Kingdom. So they are on miles instead of kilometers. Their currency is the pound, just like in England, whereas in the Republic of Ireland it's the euro. So
Interesting.
So what I'm talking about right now, we experienced for the most part in the Republic of Ireland. The speed limits, which are in kilometers per hour, are way faster than we felt comfortable driving, unless it was a big highway. So on their kind of surface streets and neighborhood roads, it was very fast because there's most of the roads have hedges along the sides.
Oh.
And so you can't, if there's a corner, you can't see around it to see if somebody's coming. So you're driving on the opposite side of the road than what you're used to. You're coming around a tight turn, let's say to the left, and you're going 80 kilometers an hour, which is, 100 kilometers an hour is 60.
Okay.
So it's like, I don't know, 40, something like that. 45. I don't remember. Someone is listening and already did the conversion in their head. They're like, no, it's, and they're shouting it. But sorry, I'm not doing the math.
Thank you, listener. Tweet at us.
So it's just too fast. So keep that in mind. There are 4 different types of roads in Ireland, and they each have a different letter. There are M roads, which are motorways. So think of that as the freeway. Those are going to have the highest speeds. They also are the widest roads. So that part's nice. Mm-hmm. There are N roads, which the N stands for national roads. Those are more like highways because sometimes they'll have roundabouts in them. Okay. So it's not like you just kind of keep going forever. Those ones are usually like 100 kilometers per hour 80 to 100 kilometers per hour. So mostly like highway, freeway speeds. Wider most of the time, but not always. Then there are the R roads, and those are the regional roads. Those ones are much narrower. Sometimes they have a line down the middle, sometimes they don't. And having a line down the middle at least gives you a sense that there's enough room for two cars, one going each direction. There may or may not be, but at least it gives you that sense. Yeah. Then there are the L roads, and L stands for local. Those ones definitely don't have enough room for two cars at once.
Okay.
And again, they have these big, thick hedges. And so it's this constant game on these roads of going fast enough that the people behind you aren't frustrated, but slow enough that you're not going to kill yourself or the others with you. And always on the lookout for a car coming the opposite direction in case you need to look for a pullout or need to kind of like pull right up to the hedges or whatever to make sure you guys don't crash as you pass.
All right. Which I've experienced on like back dirt roads sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
If you're kind of somewhere like rural, but I have not experienced somewhere where it's like an established road that they're like, yes, you can drive here and this is good.
Yeah. I mean, they are rural.
Okay.
But they're paved. I mean, they're not like dirt roads or gravel roads. But yeah, they felt kind of like what we would experience as a dirt or gravel road. Okay. Tom also mentioned that to some extent there were some similarities to the road to Hana.
Oh, yeah.
Hawaii, which I've never been to Hawaii, so I don't have personal experience with. But he said that the road to Hana is easier than what we did.
Oh, okay.
So
I've been on the road to Hana when I was in 3rd grade.
Okay.
So it turns out I was not the driver. In that
interesting.
Experience.
Okay.
Also, that was quite many number of years ago. So, like, it's a little blurry. I remember it being a long day. Yeah. But, like, I'm not quite sure what the road was like. So,
sure.
I've heard tell.
Yeah. Related to the roads, Google Maps totally works in Ireland.
Okay.
They will try to have you go the way that Google Maps thinks is the shortest, which is often, we found, on the local roads, which are the worst ones to drive. So it took us a little bit to figure it out. And once we figured out, like, a little bit, like, multiple days. Once we figured it out, we started having somebody else on Google Maps with, like, the directions. Like, so one of us would have the directions, and then Tom oftentimes would have on his phone, he would have it up, but he'd be, like, zooming out and, like, looking at the spot and say, actually, you can stay on this, regional road and go around, and yes, it'll take 2 minutes longer, except it won't actually take 2 minutes longer, because on the local road, we're freaked out all the time and driving way slower. Yeah,
so Google is considering the speed limit that is posted when they think about travel time. Assuming you are going that speed limit and you don't have to slow down or pull off the road or things like that.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. And I really feel like you should give Google that feedback.
I would if I knew how.
Yeah. Just Google, how do I give Google feedback, I guess. And maybe you'll figure it out. So.
Yeah. So, yeah. We found, so I was the first one to drive because I was the least jet lagged. Because as I had mentioned, I had been in Slovenia 48 hours before that. So I came back to the States, was here for like 36 hours, and then went back to Europe. And so I basically, while I was in the States in between, I just stayed on European time. So I didn't have a lot of jet lag adjusting that I needed to do. So
that makes sense. Yeah. You just had a really weird 48 hours.
It was real weird. Yeah. I went to bed at whatever it was, like 11 p.m. and got up again at like 2 a.m. I don't remember what it was. That can't be right. That's not enough hours, but it was weird, whatever it was. 4 a.m., I think, something like that. So
that was probably, really disorienting.
Yeah, but whatever. It worked. A couple other things. Bikes. If you're on some of those smaller roads, look out for bikes. Because then you have cars coming the other direction. You have super narrow roads. You have blind You have driving on the other side of the road, and you have a bike to get around.
Wow. And even here, bikes can be difficult to get around.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It's more so there.
Interesting.
Yep.
All right.
And then buses, which are wider.
Wow. Uh-huh.
Yep.
So they just take up the entire space.
Sometimes it felt like, there was one time where Serena was driving and I was in the back seat, and a bus came by, and I rolled down the window and stuck my phone out to take a picture of how close the bus was to us, because it was ridiculous.
Wow.
So, yeah. Yes.
Good to know. Stick on the M roads.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Ireland on
map?
Google Maps
Yep.
right now. And I'm seeing a bunch of blue rectangles that are labeling these thick yellow lines.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all M9, M8, these different M roads. So.
And we were on
Good
the M
to know.
roads almost never.
All right. So that's all right. Any other tips we have?
I mean, there were a couple of things we wrote down, but I think those are the key ones. Yeah. Stay towards the center. You will favor the side of the car that you're on. I don't know if you remember when you first started driving. I remember when I did, and when my siblings did, my mom would always, like, and I think my dad too, because we would oftentimes move farther. What direction is that? And I have to remember which side of the car we drive on. We're on the left. Okay, so we would move farther to the right towards the center of the two lanes, because you are on the left side of the car, so you're moving yourself farther away from the oncoming traffic.
Oh.
Right? So you have a better sense of what's in front of you than what's to your right. So you would tend to go too far to the left. Well, you do the same thing, just the opposite, when you are driving on the left side of the road and you as a driver on the right side. You start to favor the right side of the car because you don't have a sense of where you are in the lane.
Interesting.
Because it's a different perspective. And so
that makes sense.
You know, anyone sitting on the left side of the car may be freaking out a little bit because you're getting way closer than you realize you are to the left side of the bushes or the curb or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Okay, so would you like to hear about the trip part?
Yes!
Well, too bad. We're out of time, everybody. That's it for this episode.
That's it, Ryan. We're going to make this a two-parter.
Well, I think we may need to do that anyway. But I don't know that now's the time to stop. Okay, so we started in Dublin. We rented a car, like I said. And the very first day, we came in late. Our plane was late, which was frustrating. And I think we ended up sitting on the tarmac for like an hour after we landed because our plane was late, and then somebody was in our gate. And so we had to just sit there.
So what leg of the trip was your plane late on? Did you have a layover?
We did. We had a layover in Toronto. I hate Toronto Airport, for the record.
Okay.
All the people there were rude, nasty, and not friendly.
Really?
Yeah. It was just not a great experience. Yeah. And I've heard, I have not heard other people tell me, but I've heard from other people that they have heard that that is similar to the Toronto Airport. Not Toronto, just the airport.
Has a weird thing about it, huh?
It was weird. In contrast, the Irish people are some of the friendliest people I have ever run into.
Really?
Oh my goodness.
Cool.
We kept noticing how positive and how friendly and helpful they were.
Aww.
So for example, our first morning, the first thing that we did is we went to go see the Book of Kells. Because we got tickets ahead of time online, and that's like a big thing at Trinity College, and it can get really busy. So we took some advice and went there for the very first section of when it opened, so there would hopefully be fewer people. And I can talk about that a little bit in a minute. But when we got out, we had some time to kill between when we finished that and when our food tour started. And so we're standing outside and we're talking about, well, maybe we should go here. What about this? Some just random guy who was standing over, waiting for somebody else or whatever, he overheard what we were talking about, and he just kind of piped up and said, "Yeah, no, you don't want to go there. That's going to be too far of a walk for you to come back. Wait, so where are you trying to get to and when?" And then we told him, he's like, "Oh, so you really want to go up here and go and spend time over there at Temple Bar, and then you could probably spend that time and you could be back at the statue in time for your food tour to start." Like, just random guy, didn't know us. We weren't like on the tour together or anything. Super friendly, just helping people out.
Wow.
And we ran into that
awesome.
a number of times on the trip.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I had that experience in Texas one time in a parking lot, and I assumed that the person had some mental issues because in Seattle, that would have been the case.
Yeah.
And then I was with my siblings, and they were like, "No, Cheryl, he was just being nice." And I was like... And I'm a friendly person, but I get confused when other people do it. But also, I love it very much.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
apparently, I need to go to Ireland and hang out with some nice people.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just, yeah, by and large, really just nice, friendly, positive people, which was awesome. And of course, the accent is cool. So that's always a plus, too.
Can you imitate it? Are you good at Irish accents?
I don't. So what I tend to do is I just do more of the like cadence, like the sing-song type, more than the actual accent. And I'm sure that it's not very good. You want me to do it, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Let's see. What should I say?
Well, I'm
Well,
trying
what
to
should I
think
say
like
to you now? I don't really know what to say.
That was so good.
What's that expression on your face there, lass? Now, whether that's Irish or Scottish or some hybrid that I just made up, I don't know. If any of
That
you are
was
actually
amazing.
Irish, I apologize, because I'm sure you can tell that it's not real. But
Oh, but that was so fun.
That's my
Oh, my
attempt.
goodness. Mine is no.
Are you going to try it, Cheryl?
Oh, gosh. Oh. It's not even, my accents are so bad that you can't even guess what I'm trying to do.
Oh, I know. That's why we want to hear it.
I don't even know how to do it. Oh, no. Here, I'll do a poem. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood. I'm just trying to make my voice go up and down, but it doesn't work. And it sounds like a very racist Indian accent.
All right. So, note to self, no Irish accents for Cheryl. Oh. So, the
Okay,
Book of Kells.
What is the Book of Kells? I've heard that title
Yeah.
and I don't know what it is.
So, Kells is a city or a town in Ireland, and this is it's what's called an illuminated manuscript. So, do you know, like, remember the classic Disney movies where they would start with like a storybook that would like open,
Yeah.
and then it would be I'm thinking of The Sword and the Stone, and it would have the beautiful pictures, but like the lettering would be super elaborate, and it would be like script type writing and stuff.
I'm thinking of Cinderella, so we're both thinking of our favorite childhood Disney movie. Yep.
Yep. So it's that, basically. That's where they got those ideas from, is they actually used to draw those out with that level of detail.
So is it a museum where you get to look at that then?
Basically, yes. Yes.
Okay.
It's in Trinity College, but it's you can leave it like a museum. They have a certain set of pages on display that you can see, and then a whole bunch of other like descriptors and things that tell you about it and stuff.
Okay. So now here's my most important question for you ever. How was the food tour?
Well, I haven't finished talking about the Book of Kells.
Oh, okay, cool. Let's talk about that. I heard food tour and I just got really excited.
Yeah. So went to see the Book of Kells. I'm not a museum person, but I'm not a museum person.
Yeah, you're pretty neutral on it.
Well,
you have
I'm
to be
picky.
convinced. You're like, I'm not just going to show up at your museum. You need to convince me that it's going to be awesome.
And it has to be something that I find interesting. And reading tons and tons of paragraphs of text is not generally interesting to me. Like, that's not what's going to suck me in. And so the exhibit started with, you had to read all this stuff.
Yeah, I don't really do that.
And I didn't really have the patience for it.
Daryl does that, and we'll go somewhere, and then later he'll be like, "Oh, well, the plaque said that," and I'm like, "There was a plaque? I don't know. I was looking at the animal or whatever it is, So
Yeah.
yeah.
And it can have good information, but so I kind of breezed through that pretty quickly, went into the room that had the book. The book was cool, but you only got to see 2 pages or 4 pages. Maybe there were 2 books. And you can't take any pictures because it's a book and it's open, but it's under glass.
Yeah, and they're not going to take it apart because that would be destroying it.
So
I was going to ask you how they were displaying it, but it's not.
It's in a glass case. So, I mean, it was cool, but I didn't feel like it was super amazing. Where we went to next in the tour, though, I thought was awesome. I believe it's called the Long Room. It's a library, but it's like all wood, 2 stories, huge, and, I mean, long. I mean, it's like they would have the big, tall ladders. The books that in their room are hundreds of years old. It smells like old library, if you know what I mean. And just it's this deep, rich wood. Oh my gosh, it was beautiful. It was so, so pretty. That I loved. I could have spent more time just looking around there. I didn't.
Cool.
I mean, I did spend some time. I mean, I definitely spent more time in there than we did in looking at the book.
Okay. So did you get a ticket for this? Was there like an entrance time you had?
Yes, we had the first entrance time.
Okay, great. So you're trying to beat the rush with that and everything. Okay.
Exactly.
So with your flight being delayed, was that okay? Did that all work out?
So here's the thing, and this will come and connect back to the food tour, so it'll make you happy.
Okay.
We were originally scheduled to do the food tour the afternoon that we landed.
Okay.
But our flight was late.
Yeah.
And so it left late, and then we had an additional hour on the ground. And so we were going to be booking it to try and make this tour. And this is another reason, and Serena made this point later on, this is another good reason to go ahead and have international data. Because what we were able to do is while we were getting our rental car and we were in the van that was taking us from the airport to the rental place and all this stuff, Serena was emailing with the food tour people to say our flight has been delayed. We don't know if we're going to make it on time. And the food tour people, it was the Secret Food Tours, which I believe was the one that you've done that you recommended.
Yeah, I did the one in Barcelona.
Yeah.
And then we, when Beth and Steven came on, they did the Barcelona one. And then also, I believe, the Paris one, and said that both were great. So, yeah.
So it's the same company. And they were like, no problem. Would you rather just do the one the next morning? So it was Friday afternoon when we got in, and so it was Saturday morning. And we said, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Even if we could make this one, it'll be just barely. And you can't join later, after they've started.
Yeah, because they move locations and they're not announcing that or anything.
Exactly. So we ended up doing the food tour after we did the Book of Kells and the Long Room. And so that ended up making it a breakfast, or more like brunch, because it was, I think we started at 10:30 or something like that, maybe 11 o'clock. But we stopped and had a full Irish breakfast, which was really cool. They did a cheese thing. They took us to kind of like a Whole Foods type of place.
Okay.
And then they had some different cheeses that we tried. They took us to a whiskey shop and had us try 3 different types of whiskey.
Did you try it?
I tried all 3.
And?
Still don't like alcohol.
Okay.
And definitely not whiskey.
Here's what I feel good about. I have this theory with food because I'm a big food connoisseur, appreciator.
Yes,
I like to cook. I like to eat the things and drink the drinks.
Yeah.
There's pretty much no drink I don't like other than vodka. I feel very neutral about. Actually, I own vodka because it's great when you make your own cleaning products. So that's why I have vodka.
Okay.
But anyway, I totally believe that if you say you don't like a food, you need to try the best version. Like the people that like the food, they say this is the best one. This is the whatever. Try that one. If you don't like that one, then you really don't like that food. If you do like that one, then you just don't like the crappy versions. You just like the good one. You know what I mean? So so if you tried whiskey in Ireland on a food tour and you weren't into it, then it means you're actually not into whiskey. Not like, well, you just don't like cheap whiskey, you know?
Right.
So,
No, that makes sense. The third one that we did was, it had some sort of cream mixed in, and that one was tolerable. I
Okay.
actually drank all of the little shot cup that they gave us with that one. I did not drink all of the other two because
You
they
just did,
were
like, a sip.
revolting. But I would also never choose to drink it either. But they were saying that it
Okay.
would be really good to go in like a coffee or like a hot chocolate, and I could definitely see that that would taste pretty good mixed in with something like that. I just say
Nice.
leave the alcohol out.
The Irish cream, man. It's
Yeah.
good stuff. Yeah.
So we did
Cool.
that. And then where else did we go? I feel like I'm missing one. Well, I know we ended with ice cream. So there is Murphy's Ice Cream, which is an Irish company, and they have ice cream shops. I think there's 6 total in Ireland. We saw 4 of them. I ate at 3 of them.
Ryan,
Yes.
why did you not eat at that one?
Because they were both in the same town. Like almost across the
I
street
feel
from
like
each
that's
other.
not a good reason for you to skip out on your ice cream, but you know.
I know. Well, at that point, I knew I wasn't going to get... Because Serena joked initially because I was super excited about the ice cream. She joked, was like, well, are you going to try and get ice cream from all 6? And I was like, yeah, why wouldn't I? But it wasn't going to happen just because of logistics and things. So
Sure.
if I knew I wasn't going to get it from all 6, then I didn't feel like it was all that important to eat from both of them
Okay.
that were both in the same town.
And how was the ice cream?
It's good. They don't have a lot of flavors. They're pretty... It's very basic, but that's actually what I liked about it. Was
Okay.
It wasn't like super fancy that was trying to do 60 million things. It was just really good at the things that it was doing. And they have some uniquely Irish flavors. So the first one I got is Irish brown bread. So it's kind of like the Irish soda bread, also called brown bread, that they actually mix into the ice cream. And so there's little bits of
Really?
the bread. Yeah, I actually really liked it. I think I might have gotten it twice. And then they
Wow.
have 2 different ones that they have actually mixed. One of them is gin, and one of them is whiskey, I think. And I tried those as well. And it's not terrible, but again, it's a flavor that I'm not a fan of. And so, but they actually have the alcohol. It's not like they bake the alcohol off. It's like actually
Nice.
the alcohol's in it. So those ones were some unique ones, plus a couple others or whatever. But it was fun. And again, the people that work there were awesome. There's always somebody out there giving you free samples, which I think is always great.
Ooh,
You can
samples are
try
good.
as many of them as you want before you actually order, which is also great. So,
Nice. Awesome.
yeah.
Cheese and whiskey and ice cream. When are we going?
Well, I
I'm
just
so
got
in.
back. So it's going to take a little bit of
Well,
time before we
then.
go back.
Good. You have not adjusted to the time yet. It's not too late. Let's get on a plane. Here we go.
I'm ready to be home, Cheryl.
Fair. You were gone for a month. That's
I
a
was
long
gone for a
time.
month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what else did you do in Dublin?
Well, those were kind of the big things that we did in Dublin.
Okay.
We also visited Christchurch Cathedral, a couple other like kind of museums that we kind of hit. I went up to a science museum that was not a science museum and was weird, and I was like, well, it's a good thing that was free because I definitely would not have paid for it.
Good to know.
Yep.
Was that your first disappointing science museum, or have you had other disappointments in science museums?
No, that was probably my first like legitimate, because it wasn't actually science stuff. It was more technology and like art, in a sense, like we're trying to make a statement about things.
Oh, okay.
So like, I don't remember what was it. They had like this sculpture that looked like an actual, you would have hated it, Cheryl. It looked like an actual person, but it wasn't a person. And he had, I don't remember what it was. It was like trying to have him be adapted to something. And so had like extra long feet and weird like head that like blended with like no neck and like 4 nipples. I don't know. It was weird. You, like I said, you wouldn't have liked it. It was just weird.
No, that sounds like something I would not like at all.
No, it was weird. So, but that was basically Dublin. And then we did
Great.
our first actual like road trip section where we drove from Dublin, which is in the northern part of the Republic of Ireland, down to Waterford, which is not exactly, but it's kind of more or less due south on the southern coast.
And did you take the M50 to the M9?
We did not. We did not
Oh.
take any M roads. We took a bunch of L's. This was our
boy.
first experience because we chose to drive through the Wicklow Mountains into a place called Sally Gap. And this is where we ran into bikes, like hundreds of bikes on these narrow roads going super fast
Oh boy.
when we had only been driving for like 2 days. It was pretty intimidating.
Oh boy.
But it was beautiful to just like get out of the city and be in the countryside. And it was green. Ireland is very green. It reminds me a lot of Western Washington, which is nice. And we ended up like finding this like random kind of viewpoint just past Sally Gap. I've looked it up since. It's called Roadtrip, and Lough, Lough, is Irish for lake. Kind of like in Scottish, it's loch,
Oh, okay.
right? So it's low. And so it's like Lake Tay, I think. And so there was just a viewpoint. Well, there was a big viewpoint that lots of people were at that we moved past, and then just past that there was a much smaller one that we pulled off at, and it's just beautiful because it's just up on this hill and it goes down, and then there's this beautiful blue lake with these green hills kind of rolling away from it. It was gorgeous.
Wow.
And that was like the first really scenic thing that we saw on the trip.
Wow.
And it was beautiful. And like that's what I like about road trips is you see something, you stop and you look.
Yep.
You know, because it's not
That's
just
awesome.
about getting to the destination.
Yeah. It's about the journey,
It's
not just
about
the
the
destination.
journey.
It is the opposite of taking a plane,
Yes.
where
Oh
you
my
are
gosh.
waiting. Being on a plane, you're like, how many hours do I have to kill with these movies that I am watching?
Yep.
Okay, 9 hours? Great. 9 hours of movies. Here we go.
Yep. Which, for the record, our last flight, no, our second to last flight, we flew Dublin to Vancouver on the way back, and then Vancouver to Seattle. Our plane from Dublin to Vancouver, their entertainment system didn't work.
And did you have your DVDs USB in your laptop?
I did. I definitely did. And I also had a few movies downloaded on my phone. And I was like, yep,
Nice.
This is why I do this. Because you're not guaranteed to always have entertainment on the plane.
Listeners, listen to our packing lists episode. Just listen to both packing episodes. This is really like our finest work. So,
Yep. Yep. So we were going to stop at Glendalough, which is a big site that everybody talks about. It was an ancient monastic whatever. And by the time we got there, parking was insane. And we were pretty stressed from having driven with all the bikers for a really long time. Because I was driving, and Serena and Tom, because I was driving. So they were freaked out because I was driving. And so we like missed it initially, and then we went down to this other place and then had to turn around. And we were kind of like, is this stop worth it to us to try and figure this out, or should we just keep going? And we elected to just keep going. And we're like,
Nice.
well, we can see the tower from here. There's the tower. We saw the Glendalough Tower. We're good. And then a little while after that, we found, again, one of just things and just kind of pulled off. And there was like these ruins of these ancient, not ancient, maybe 100 years ago or so, from like the 1800s or something.
Oh, those are new. Brand new.
Well, for Ireland, they're
I
relatively
know!
new.
That's what I'm saying. It's only
yeah.
a half joke.
Exactly. But like a lead mine. So a place where they had mined lead.
Oh, wow.
But it was in this valley. Again, just beautiful views. We kind of went up and kind of hiked around. There was a little river running through it. It was really cool. And then we also stopped at Kilkenny Castle. And Kilkenny Castle was the first castle of the trip. I don't know about you, Cheryl, but I love me a good castle.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, I'm right there with you. They're so exciting. I
Yeah.
think being from the States, you're like, this is a building that just doesn't exist where I'm from. You know,
No.
like, I mean, I love a good downtown area. I love a good, like, iconic building, you know, things like that. But they're, oh man. I think combined with being in like a countryside and, castles. Yeah.
So Kilkenny Castle looks like a castle, which you're like, well, duh, it's a castle. A lot of castles don't look like castles.
Yeah. Some of them you're just like, that's more of an estate,
Yeah.
you know, or it looks like a neighborhood.
Yep, exactly. And I would say this is really kind of a hybrid of an estate and a castle, because parts
Okay.
of it definitely look more like a palace of Versailles type of a thing, but there it has. I mean, I don't know if they're technically turrets or like towers, but round sections that you would think of as like a turret or
Yeah.
a tower that you would associate with a castle. So,
Cool.
which is nice.
So if you saw it in Pictionary, you'd guess it correctly.
I think so. I think
Okay.
so. Yeah, I don't know if I would guess Kilkenny Castle, but I would probably say castle.
Castle. Okay.
Yeah. So it's kind of in a U shape. So there's kind of a short section where the entry gate is, and then two long sections that kind of come off of it. And there's the two round parts at the junctions between the short section and the long section. And you can do the tour. You have to pay for it, but we thought it was worth it. And you can kind of go through the different rooms. Some of them are real old looking, and they've redecorated them with period pieces. I probably from the Victorian era, because that's apparently when everybody wants to decorate for. They've got some cool tapestries and some cool things. I actually really enjoyed the underground part when we went to go find the bathroom. Because that part hadn't necessarily been redone a ton, so there was still older brick and things kind of in the base of the castle, which I
Oh,
enjoyed.
cool.
There was the creepy kids room that had
The
like
creep-
old,
with like the porcelain dolls.
yeah, it had like kids toys that you're like, oh, that would give me nightmares, because that's clearly the room that's haunted, right?
And possessed.
And
You know.
possessed, all of those things. Yep. They definitely had a toilet room
All right.
that they let you see. And they had different bedrooms that were decorated. I didn't really care a ton about that. But there were some really cool views because there were gardens. And so some of the rooms you could look through the windows and look out on the gardens. And you can look out on parts of the city and you can see the river and a lot of those sorts of things, which I
Nice.
thought was really fun. There was some interesting carpeture. It's not a real word. But carpets in certain parts, just like there was different styles and different architecture in different parts. So if you kind of look here,
Oh.
it's like very, very, think of like hotel carpet that's very busy, but this is
Yeah.
very busy, but in a fancy looking way.
Yeah, I prefer that to hotel ones a lot. I think hotels need to take some notes
Yeah.
from that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's very, very, very patterned. But it looked kind of cool. And then I think the coolest part was at one end where it's this big, long hall, and they had, portraits of people that I didn't bother to read about who they were because I didn't really care. The ceiling was all wood. And it was beautiful wood, and there was some carvings in it, and there was stuff that was like illustrated, and then the very top was, I don't know if it was glass or technically now if it's like plexiglass or something, but it's this beautiful, beautiful long hallway with
Oh, that's gorgeous.
yeah, and the wood
You
ceilings
got like a barn feeling up there, but super
almost,
fancy.
but exactly, but it was really nice. So I didn't expect it. It was unexpected, but it looked really, really cool, and it's decorated and painted. And then they had these. It was almost like a Native American longhouse sort of a feel, if you know what I'm talking about. Growing up in the Northwest, because
Yeah.
some of the support pillars had like this one. It has like decorations on the side, and then it has like a face. This one's a dog carved in the end.
Oh yeah, that
Yeah.
totally seems like that style.
Yeah. So it was just really, really cool, and something that I didn't expect, in a castle. But it was a really cool style, I thought.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And we could walk around on the
Very
grounds
cool.
a little bit and
Nice.
see the gardens and stuff. But that's Kilkenny Castle.
Oh, yep. I would guess that in Pictionary.
Yeah, castle.
It's got the little up, down, up, down.
Yes, right? I know.
Thanks.
Yeah, at the top of the tower.
Yes.
Yep. I don't know
That
what those things are
classic-
called.
My sister's an architect. I should probably just ask her.
Yeah.
Will I remember? We'll find out.
Well,
she listens to this podcast.
She does. She'll let you know. But my question is not because I doubt Lisa's knowledge, but I'm not sure that those up-down things, as apparently we're calling them, those aren't really particularly modern things that we put in buildings right now. So
That's true.
Is she may not know the term. She might.
She
because it's
probably
Lisa.
knows, though, because she's pretty nerdy with her architecture and,
Yeah.
like, throws around terms like flying buttresses. And
Ooh, but see, I like flying buttresses. I actually
she
know
also
what
told
those
me
are.
about the, like, 5 different types of columns.
Corinthian. That's the only one I know.
I believe that is one of them. I remembered 0 of them, but could probably, if you give me a list of 10, I might be able to guess the 5, but, not sure about
Okay.
that. So,
Okay.
Lisa, go ahead and correct us.
Yes, please.
All right. Well, Ryan, I'm so excited to hear more about your trip.
But you're going to cut me off, aren't you?
I'm going to cut you off because
We're not even halfway through it yet, Cheryl.
I know, but those driving tips, they. So, listeners, I'm so sorry, but you're going to have to wait a week to hear the rest of Ryan's trip because it's going to be a 2-parter. For me, I'm going to have to wait
Like
0
25
minutes for that many minutes because we're going to finish off this episode and then start the next one.
Yep.
So it's all so fresh in our minds. Yeah. So with that,
I think you're going to make me move to Wish You Were Here's, aren't you?
yes, come back on the hosting side of things with
All
me.
right. I will. Hi. Oh, this is what the
Hi.
hosting side feels like.
Yes. Yeah. Isn't it great?
It is. So it's time for the last segment of our podcast called Wish You Were Here. During this segment, each of us, Cheryl and I, are going to share a travel attraction that we have run into, that we enjoy, that we think would be cool. You can think of it kind of like a little postcard, take a little snapshot of something from our travels, like Wish You Were Here, and just tell our audience about it. And today, for our Wish You Were Here, I believe we are sharing the Wish You Were Here. Are we not, Cheryl?
Yes, we are.
Do you want to share what it is?
I'd love to. So we've mentioned it on this podcast before, but we have not done it for a Wish You Were Here. So we got to talk about Theo chocolate.
Yo.
So I would say if you're visiting Seattle, this is a great thing to go see.
Yes.
First of all, because chocolate.
Yes, that should be reason enough just on its own because there is chocolate that they give you
Yes.
and that you can buy.
Yes. Also, because I would say it's in the neighborhood of Fremont and it's just kind of a fun area to walk around. So I'd say kind of beyond that one attraction, actually, like spend some time in Fremont. You could park just in one location and kind of walk around to a couple of different fun places. And what's fun about walking up to the Theo Chocolate Factory is the smell.
What does it
You're
smell
walking
like,
up a
Cheryl?
couple. It smells like chocolate. From a couple blocks away, you just start smelling. You're like, what is that amazing, amazing smell? It is so much chocolate. Just so much chocolate. So they offer a tour, I believe, it's $15 maybe, something like that.
Yeah, I don't remember how much.
Around that price. It's been a couple of years since I've gone. But what's great about Theo is they do that whole bean to bar process. So they buy the beans and go from there.
Yep.
So you actually get to not just see how chocolate is like made as far as like melting and recipes, but you get to see how chocolate is fully made. And so they
Yep.
walk you through starting with the cocoa bean, what they do. You get a couple little samples on the tour.
Well,
They're not going crazy with the samples
No,
on the
it-
tour
no,
itself.
they're not. It's not necessarily generous samples, I wouldn't say. But
Yeah.
one of the things that is cool is you get samples as the cocoa bean goes through the process. So you get to taste what it tastes
The
like.
nibs.
Yeah, exactly. Before it's gone through all of the refining to be chocolate like we think of it now. And so seeing how chocolate as a cocoa bean doesn't taste super chocolatey the way we think it to be.
Yeah. So that's really fun. You get to actually walk through the factory, see the machines, all of that. So the tour
Wait, hold on.
is
Hold
great.
on. So we have to mention
Yes.
that there is a contraption in Theo's Chocolate Factory that looks like one of the contraptions from Willy Wonka, from the original movie.
I don't remember which one, but I do remember feeling like I was in
Oh, yes.
Willy Wonka.
Definitely. It's the... I mean, I don't remember what the contraption that Theo actually does, but it looks very similar to the vehicle that Willy Wonka rides, where it, like, spurts out, like, the foam and everything like that. Yep.
Apparently I need to go on this tour again and just, like, sing Oompa Loompa a lot of times
Yep.
and make everyone else really mad at me.
Yep, I think you do.
Yeah.
I think you do.
Yeah, so the tour is great. It's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say it's a nice length of a tour
Yeah,
as well.
I'd
Like
agree
the
with that.
building is not huge.
Yep.
So that's great. It doesn't take forever, but it's interesting. And then the tour ends in the gift shop.
As most tours do.
Yes. Now, normally this is maybe a little bit annoying, and you're like, no, I don't want to buy your poster of your place. Like, why would I want that on my wall? But in this case, the gift shop is full of more chocolate.
Yep.
And with way more generous samples, because
yeah.
almost every single bar, they just have a container of broken pieces of that bar, and there is no one monitoring you,
Nope.
by the way. So,
You can try
now-
every bar as many times as you want.
And they have more flavors than a lot of times what's carried in stores. And they have seasonal flavors. One of the things that they don't have samples of, but you should just buy, is the dark chocolate peanut butter cup that they have, because that is something else. It's so good. Oh, it's so good. But here's the other fun thing is, let's say you find yourself in Fremont and you're like, well, this sounds great. I don't want to spend the time, or maybe I don't want to spend the money on the tour itself. Just go in the gift shop.
Yep.
Go get yourself some chocolate samples. Get a couple bars. Maybe that's a souvenir you bring home to your family, you know, or whatever. Because even that on its own is just a really fun thing.
Yeah. Yeah, when we went, we actually went in the gift shop before our tour because we got there earlier.
Oh, darn.
And so we walked
you had to kill
around
some
there
time.
first.
That sucks.
And then we went on the tour, and then we were in the gift shop again at the end. And we were not
With
bored.
a mustache?
Yeah. We were not bored to be back in that gift shop because it's not really a gift shop. It's a chocolate shop, let's be honest.
Yes, which is great.
Yes.
And then one time I went to like a special event that they had with my sister. I think they're just promoting it online a little bit, and we went. It was in the summer a couple years ago, where they were making s'mores outside of their building with homemade marshmallows, their chocolate, which
Of
is
course.
thicker than like a Hershey's, as well as being amazing. And they were doing it. And then, so we just went and bought a Theo chocolate s'more. And then it's right next to this little waterway. And so then we went and sat and like watched the boats go by and sat in the sun. Yeah, that was a good day.
Yeah.
So,
it's not a super big building.
no, it's not.
So we think chocolate factory. It's not this big, huge factory feeling building. It's pretty small.
It's like what, 2 stories, 3 stories? It's not that
Yeah,
tall.
something like that. So
Yeah.
that's nice too. It doesn't feel like big and industrial.
Yeah, that's very true. It's a brick building, so it's pretty. Yeah. So, go there.
Go.
Man, now I want to go there again.
Well,
Let's
see, the
go.
advantage is, Cheryl, you don't live that far away.
I know. And there's like a cider place that's good next to it, and a whiskey place, and a sushi place. Oh man, there's a lot of good things right around there.
So Which are the... Yeah, nope, just the chocolate place. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're like a cider place, and you mean hard cider, and a whiskey
Yep.
place, and sushi. Yep, nope,
We've
not
discussed
interested in
that.
any of those. Thanks, though. I'll just have all the chocolate.
And the troll. You could take pictures with the Fremont troll
Yes,
under the bridge.
You could do that
Yeah.
for sure. Awesome. So
All
there you
right.
go. You should all go to Theo's Chocolate. And if you've already been, you should go again.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode. If you are interested in seeing any of the pictures of the things that I have talked about already, then find us on social media. We are at TMWY Podcast on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. So you can definitely follow us. You can send us messages. You can correct some of the things that we said. You can tell us how bad our accents were. All of those things you can do on social media.
You can also email us at timwepodcast@gmail.com. Send us your travel questions, travel tips, travel stories, and more.
Yes. Or you could give us a call and leave us a voicemail at 406-763-8699. Or if that's easier to remember, 406-POD Timwe. You can also text us if you are just like in the middle and you want to send it right now, but don't want to actually take out the email application. Just send us a text message. Again, just like Cheryl said, it could be a question, it could be a tip, or more. We would also really love it if you would rate and review us and subscribe to our podcast to make sure you don't miss anything. And if you can share us on social media so other people can hear some of the cool travel stories from our guests, that would also be awesome.
As always, thank you to Beth Reed Miller for her artwork. We love it. And if you want to check out more of her artwork, she is at Beth is Something. And thank you to Erica Corbin for the use of her song Around the Globe. You can check out her music wherever music is sold or streamed.
Exactly. So thank you for listening to this week. As Cheryl mentioned, I will continue to talk about the rest of my Ireland adventures in next week's episode. So make sure you tune in for that, because there are way more cool things yet to come in the trip.
Oh, man.
But until then, remember to take me with you.
Take me with you.
Can we get a sailboat chasing down the sunset as we float round and round the globe? Salty air and balmy nights, guided only by the lights above, and a little love. Oh, the world is out there waiting to explore, and all our troubles here wanting to be